Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Women in ERP podcast. This is episode 6. I'm Abigail Ullman.
And I'm Steph Poor.
And we're joined today by Melissa Dickens from Infor.
Yay. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Melissa.
Hey. Thanks for having me.
It's good to have you here. So if we get started, let's have a little recap of what we've been up to. Steph's been the busiest she's ever been. Because she's going on holiday soon.
I'm trying to clear the decks, but yeah, end of Q1 was mental. I seem to have just had event after event. The events kind of both socially and he's desperate to make an appearance, Abby.
I'll have my 2 barking in a minute, don't worry.
Set each other off.
I'll edit him.
Yeah, it's fine. So yeah, all the events are kind of ramping up, both socially, like personally, I mean, and business wise. So I don't know about anyone else, but I just seem to have a lot of like conferences and events and everything. And particularly in the last week, it's just gone a bit nuts. So I just can't wait for my holiday next week, to be honest.
Yeah, that'd be nice. Yeah.
What about you, Abby?
It's just a mad one. It's just been a mad week. It's Easter holidays here, so I've got the kids at home, and Chris, my partner, I always say it every episode, he's a pilot, but they're so short staffed at the moment that I thought he'd have a load of standbys, but he's flying. So yeah, it's been difficult. And at the same time, I've been volunteering for STEMETS this week, and I'm about to move into an office.
Quite exciting.
Yeah, so it's all a bit mad, but yeah, it's good busy, just working 24/7. Which is crazy.
I think we can all relate.
Yeah, and I saw that you'd hosted a little IFS women's event this week.
We had a Women in Tech event, which was really good, with Jacqueline Rojas doing a talk. So yeah, it was really good. It was a shame we had quite a few dropouts because of COVID still buggering everything up. But yeah, no, it was really, really good. And I think it set a really good foundation for a kind of customer and partner kind of IFS focused network. So yeah, it's going to be good.
Yeah, and I think it's inspired us at WERP. I think we're going to have an event.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Watch this space.
Get arranging that. Yeah, and at the same time, I'm building an app as well. So I'm learning to code. I'm building an app.
I don't know how you fit it all in, Abby. I'm not going to lie.
I don't know either. Bit of this, bit of that. So yeah, we get there. But yeah, all good. So if we get into it today. Tell us a little about you and who you are and what you do.
Yeah, I have got 2 grown-up children. I've got 2 fur babies. I've always worked in ERP, so started off my career in ERP and have never left. So that's been quite a journey. I'm not going to say exactly how many years that is or how old my children are. I like to walk my dogs and go to the gym, or try to go to the gym, spend time with family, friends outside of work. But yeah, I'm working in the food and beverage industry. So 2 of my favorite things. So that is a great industry for me to be in. And it's really exciting. It's really disruptive, very challenging at the moment, but I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, absolutely. And what do you do as your role at Infor?
So I'm senior account manager working as new business. So all new business. Predominantly I've worked as account management, looking after existing customers, but this is new business role and it's just food and beverage focused. So it's good to have that focus and really good to kind of understand the quirkiness of the food and beverage industry, shall we say, and the challenges that they have. When we look at food and beverage, we then look at you've got dairy, you've got meat, you've got produce, all with their different quirks, different processes, different challenges. So it's a kind of vast industry, but it's exciting. And, some good people that I'm working with, and, they're good, fun people in the food and beverage industry.
Yeah,
that's what it's all about.
Hopefully they're providing you with lots of samples.
Not yet, but let's hope so.
One of my colleagues has a dessert manufacturer, and he went for a meeting the other day, and he literally came back with a whole booth full of cake. And then just sent us all photos of the cake we didn't have, but he had.
Brilliant.
Thanks.
It's good when you get the alcohol ones.
That's it.
There's a famous whiskey one that fills your
She's got
boot.
a sub-vertical, have you, that's just focused on booze.
Yeah, that's mine. I'll put my hand up for that one.
Yeah, I bet. Melissa and I actually go back. We used to work together very closely, so we're good friends. But Melissa, do you want to start kind of how you originally got into kind of, you were originally at Infor, weren't you, kind of back in the day? I know you've gone back there, but do you want to talk about the early part of your career?
Yeah, it was Infor. It's called Markham Solutions back then. So I wasn't afforded to go to university, as probably many of the people would have done through that channel into sales. My family, couldn't really afford to kind of support me solely in that respect. My mum was very poorly, and subsequently she died when I was young. So kind of my effort into that was to kind of support the family by going into full-time employment. I had a young child at the time, but I really wanted a career as well. But I was fortunate to work with people that kind of could see your worth and could see that you were good in other areas and kind of help you with your career to kind of, push you along that route. And I've had mostly predominantly men actually that I've worked for, but and really I've kind of seen potential. Mainly started off in sort of sales supports role, working up to kind of really supporting kind of global teams, to then kind of doing sort of inside sales, then account management, and then moving back then to new business. So it's been, a really interesting career and always learning. And I think the key thing is to always be sort of challenging yourself. I find it the most interesting when there is that time to kind of really challenge yourself.
Absolutely. So yeah, if we go back, when you were obviously that young girl working at when you first came in for the sales support role where you started, did you ever envisage that you would get to where you are now? Because given you've been, you've literally kind of risen through the ranks and I've got so much experience, that did you ever have the belief that you would get to where you are?
I don't think at that point it was kind of a belief or a career path. I think nowadays they come in and there's a mentoring program, there's a clear roadmap of where you're going to be, and we have all that support. I think in the kind of 90s, it wasn't really that kind of sort of thought through really. Maybe if we'd have asked for it, maybe we could have had that. And I think to some degree, just by default, working with some good managers, that they saw potential, that there was a path, if you like. But I think back then it was really about supporting my family, and kind of just doing a job that I enjoyed.
Yeah.
I think really it was probably in the last 10 years that you probably really start to think about, where do I want to go with my career? And then you really make a conscious decision that you're going to make sure that you do everything you can and learn as much to be able to get to that point. And I think for sort of the younger generation coming in now, they're in a very fortunate position that we've got more robust mentoring capabilities, and we're kind of really looking at how do we attract the right people in our business and keep them. So I think that it's more fortunate. But
you mentioned earlier that there were lots of men that supported you on your journey. Did you find that there were any?
So wrong, Abby. That sounds so wrong.
Male mentors that supported you on your journey.
Yeah.
Did you find that you were the only female, like you were breaking boundaries, or did you have women that you could look up to and aspire to?
Yeah, good question.
Men that you were looking up to?
Yeah, good question. There's always been women role models within organisation. Infor's got diverse, women-men ratio. And in fact, one of my good friends who I was in a similar role for a number of years with at Infor, she's now, director within Infor. So she's also gone up the ranks and so that's really great, really kind of look up to her, proud of her. And so I think predominantly within sales team, I always find myself to mainly be the only woman. I think it changed a little bit IFS, and now coming back into Infor, there is more of a split ratio, but I think it's predominantly men, really.
Yeah.
So I don't feel that that's ever been a challenge, to be honest with you, because I think I have the same mentor as you do, Steph. One of the boys, one of the lads.
Yeah.
You just kind
Absolutely.
of roll your sleeves up, get stuck in, and you get on with it. And I don't feel like I want to have that. You
don't feel limited. You feel like
no,
the same opportunity. Yeah,
it's interesting because when Melissa joined IFS, she was actually the only woman in the sales team, and I wasn't part of the sales team then. And I remember thinking, oh, there's a woman, like maybe I can do it. Like, and you pretty well have known that, but I was already looking up to you thinking, oh, like there are other options. And it kind of, although I kind of had a idea in my mind that's where I wanted to go next, to actually see someone doing it actually was quite inspiring for me. So
well, it's really interesting because when I was you get approached by various headhunters, etc., and had a chat with a couple during my sort of sales career. And it was very interesting because the comment came back to say, look, if you want XY job, then you are really, you're going to be really favoured, not only because of, your career and what you've achieved, but also because you are a woman. And I found that astonishing because a lot of the tech companies now see the need diversity and that they, want to start to employ more women. So I found that very interesting. We had a very interesting conversation, which I'm not going to say.
I had similar ones as well. And yeah, I find it, in some ways, I find it quite sad that it's even, oh, well, you're going to be, you've got an advantage because you're a woman. It should just be the first person gets the job. But equally, at least they're looking at it, if you know what I mean, in terms of it's not all male. It's interesting. I mean,
they're
for
looking
me,
at it, but I'd like for them, like we had some interesting conversation. I said they're looking at it, but there's also what do women and men bring to those sorts of skills, or what is it the individual? And that's what I think is quite important as well,
absolutely.
Isn't it? It's that individual, what do they bring?
100%. I think we help, especially in sales teams. It helps to address the kind of testosterone fueled. It kind of rebalances it slightly. Because it can be a bit much sometimes.
You have banter and it's just part of it. If you're going to be precious and stuff, then I think in this sort of industry as well, in sales, you kind of have to have a little bit of a thick skin, and kind of and I mean in new business you can get so many no's. You literally have to have a bit of a tenacity in you anyway.
Well, I was going to ask you about that. So I worked in sales for a little bit of my time, and to be honest, I did not enjoy it. It's very difficult. How do you find it on the mental health? Like, how do you manage that? Because there's so many highs and lows, and how do you cope, both of you, I guess?
Yeah, I think that just by, I think you look at yourself and talking to other people who you are working with and looking up to kind of say, hey, where are my skills? You should never ask that with people. Where do you feel that my strengths are? And I do that quite a bit, but I think I'm very adapt to change. I think software and just the world in general, especially in the food and beverage now, it's all about change. How quickly can you change and adapt? And I think I'm one of those people. I think just from my childhood, my history, I think I've learned to adapt and change. So I think that I can pick myself up and kind of move on, not take that too personally at the end of the day. I think that's kind of, where you can't do.
Yeah. And
I think it's very different. And it brings new challenges, and I kind of like overcoming those challenges. So for me, it feels like it's the right thing. It's keeping me on my toes. There's something new every day. You've got to work for it. And when you do get the contract at the end of it, I mean, that's absolutely amazing. But just as quickly as it's amazing, it's right onto the
I completely relate to that.
Yeah.
I mean, I similar to Melissa in terms of it's kind of you have to have a bit of a thick skin, and whilst you might obviously we all aim to sign every single deal, the reality is that doesn't happen. But I think as long as you can walk away and think I did the best I could do, I think that goes a long way. And I think I know we're both quite similar in that, in terms of we'll always give it our all. And if it doesn't come off, then it doesn't come off. Lessons learned. But it's interesting, I've noticed I had a great year last year, and I noticed actually whilst I signed some really great deals, every time I signed them, I always found it such an anticlimax because it was, you know, this whole momentum of like, I got all caught up in the excitement, I'm going to do it. And I was so focused. And then afterwards it's like, oh, what now? Like, I need the next one. It's like some kind of weird adrenaline rush that once you've actually signed it,
yeah, you got to keep going.
It's
You're
weird,
addicted.
yeah.
I remember my son came back from uni through COVID, came to live with me. So it was me, my son, and the dogs.
Oh, great.
And he didn't have anything really to do. You know, he was focused just on his 1 hour exercise that he could do a day. And I remember him saying, I actually phoned him to say I was going to do this with you guys. And, you know, have you got any comments from my career and what that's brought to you? He said, I just remember waking up, going to bed. You were always at your desk. I literally thought, do you do anything else but work? And I was working long hours, but there was not, that also probably was it's not good to do too many hours, but also in lockdown when everyone's getting bored and frustrated, I was kind of focused. So that gave me that focus and the normality. But my son had said that, you know, he was going through a hard time because working, that's the door again, working in university and in lockdown, he was not being able to go to lectures like everybody else was. He wasn't socializing. So that was a really tough time for him going through his time at uni. And it said it gave him a bit of a shove up the backside to kind of work harder because he could see success. He could see the hours that you put in. He could see what it brought to me when you were successful. And it doesn't always mean signing a contract successful, just having a great conversation with a customer, you know, and talking through a business challenge. To me, that's a win, you know. So he kind of went on and, you know, he graduated with flying colours and he's now doing sort of a sales type of role himself and is absolutely enjoying it. But he did say, Mom, you did give me that inspiration to work harder. That's amazing.
That's yeah, that
You
really,
can't ask more.
Yeah, that speaks to me because I've got my kids watching me every day just doing work and obviously playing with them as well. But you know, they sit and they'll see what I'm doing and just to know that actually there's an impact there, a positive impact, that speaks volumes to me. So, and
I think that I mean, my son's too old and your children are smaller, but it's the greatest thing with children because I've had my niece and nephew who are younger and they copy you. And the way they copy you in their style, you can kind of see that image of what you portray when doing your work.
Yeah, that's it.
my niece is normally doing a bossy voice, you know, that's their interpretation. Speaking really quickly. And then
your brother's like, oh, Auntie Melissa's been to be listening to Auntie Melissa again. I remember during the lockdown and Ethan used to appear with cups of coffee and we may have had a few beverages every now and then in the evening. And yeah, I remember he was always, like you say, watching.
Bringing my other glass of Prosecco, wasn't he?
I think it might have been a bottle, Melissa, but we won't. No one's judging.
So tell us more about the food and beverage industry and then, you know, I guess what Infor are doing for that industry at the moment.
Well, Infor are very only concentrating on a few verticals, and food and beverage is one of those. So we're building a lot into the product, and I've already built into the product, make it true SaaS multi-tenant. But so it's got the functionality already in there for food and beverage, alongside accelerators for different kind of verticals within the food and bev. When I say verticals, I mean for dairy, for meat, etc. The food and beverage industry, I mean, if you think of it and have those discussions, it's kind of like who else kind of grows or has to go and hunt for their raw materials. So in the fish industry, you know, we're effectively hunting for fish, the right fish for Morrison's or for Sainsbury's or for whoever. And we're effectively hunting for our raw material, or who has raw material in that we don't really know what we're getting, because the weather could dictate the raw material that we're getting in, the weather, where we're planting seeds, where the animals are, and all of that sort of stuff. So it's very very challenging, and food and beverage companies need to adapt and be very agile and always innovate. I mean, innovation is key. You look at now, my daughter's vegan and she's been vegan for a while, but when she was on her journey of vegan, there wasn't much around that she could actually buy. Now you look at factories that are, producing, say, beef burgers, for instance, and they've got opening new factories for their vegan range. I mean, it's and they're having to, that's a whole different process. They're having to be really sort of creative. So our software is geared around the whole kind of industry and supply chain and new product development, and the whole ERP backbone for that industry.
And you're almost, I guess, future proofing based on future trends and climate issues as well, for instance.
Yeah, so we've seen so many disruptions in supply chain. I mean, look, if you've got a product, we're looking at probably bread's going to be kind of difficult to get hold of, or more expensive because of the grain. So companies will say, alternatively, what else can we do to make this product but use a different ingredient? Well, that then has an impact on their whole production, the labeling, the ingredients, the cost. I mean, what is the cost of adding in a different ingredient? Yeah. So having to be agile like that, you need solutions around to be able to help you. Doing that on spreadsheets is just going to be you'll be left behind type of.
And have you seen an increase in the last couple of years, given COVID, given all the various crises that we keep sadly having? Have you seen that quite a lot on, say, legacy systems, and suddenly they're looking at how can we be more agile? So whilst as a business they might have great ideas, but the reality is that their systems hold them back. Are you seeing quite a lot of change there as well?
Yeah, I think that's on a CIO's mind, isn't it, really, about the whole digital transformation. And when we say digital transformation, it doesn't have to be that whole, the whole sort of business. It could be areas that, are digitalized, to have better, transparency of data. I mean, that's key in any industry, isn't it? But yeah, that's definitely something that's on, the forefront, and where we like to kind of help as a partner. It's not coming in, selling software, then going. It's kind of making sure that you are there as a partner along with their journey, to guide and to make sure that they are achieving the goals that they originally set out. When we were first originally talking to them. So I think that's all really important.
It's important for you, I guess, to be abreast of current events, to know exactly what's going on, where in the world, and how that's going to impact the supply chain and your customers ultimately. So do you find you're constantly sort of looking at news and researching and staying ahead of events?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've signed up for every food and beverage article, newsletter, always on LinkedIn. And part of my daily routine is on LinkedIn, on looking at what's current, looking at recent Kinder Egg recalls, for instance. I mean, can be an absolute nightmare for businesses.
What a nightmare at Easter.
Oh yeah. I know.
I mean, it's alleged.
Does that mean you've got to crack them open just to check and save thing on the kids?
Yeah.
But yeah, you definitely have to stay, and that's part of my part of what I do is I really enjoy that whole research. I find it really interesting, and how that then is relevant to customers or prospects that you are working with. Yeah, that's really important.
It's interesting because you have your career, you have your whole job that you do on a daily basis, but around that, in your own time, you're still researching, you're still planning. So it's almost like you do end up working through, don't you, just like 24/7, but without knowing it.
Yeah, and I think with our technology as we have it now, sitting on the sofa, and I'll be kind of like, what are you doing? Oh, I'm just researching or looking at this, because it becomes a bit of and I don't want to say hobby, but it's a passion.
Yeah,
shall we say? And I think that anything you do that you have a passion or you really enjoy doing, you naturally want to do it well, and you're interested in doing it. So rather than searching through Facebook and looking for clothes on there, looking at supply chain issues or what the impact of this has on whatever, and I'm not doing that every single night. That sounds really sad.
It's all right, Melissa, I know you. but it's so true. I think if you're passionate about your career or something within that, like you say, the whole industry, then you don't feel like you're working. So it just becomes part of the norm. And I think that's almost like the utopia of getting the balance right, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, 100%.
Fab. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Melissa. I'm going to let you go. But yeah, we appreciate you coming on, and speak to you soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me. Bye.